What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another Magic the Gathering video. And just over the weekend we had MagicCon Las Vegas, which of course featured the Pro Tour, which we wrapped up the entire event. You can go ahead and check out the metagame, what we thought about the day 1, day 2 parts of the event, the standings, the top 8, thoughts and opinions, all that kind of stuff. Everything that you need to know about the Pro Tour, we posted in a video yesterday. Go ahead and check that out. But today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the spoilers from the new Edge of Eternity set that's going to be coming out later this year and is actually going to mark the rotation of the standard format, which is kind of funny because Edge of Eternities deals with, the outer space, rotation. I think that's pretty funny. And, we thought that, at least with the Fast and the Furious movies, when they went to outer space, there was at least another movie after it. So, hey, you know what? Magic's going to have at least one more set after it as well when we get done with space. So hopefully this is really cool. A lot of these cards look awesome. There's some pretty cool mechanics here. So we're just going to go over all the cards that were spoiled over the weekend at MagicCon Las Vegas. And of course, we're going to be covering all those spoilers as well as they kind of come out as we try to dive a little bit deeper into spoiler season rather than just going in the shorts, trying to make these longer form videos. So if you want to see these long form videos and kind of some deeper thoughts and opinions of these cards and just kind of going through the whole text of it, things like that, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you know when those videos get posted. You can also subscribe to my channel if you want to keep up with the competitive happenings of the standard and modern formats, going over various different deck lists, covering all the major events, that sort of thing. You definitely don't want to miss any of that. And of course, if you want even more content, go ahead and check out the description down below. I have a link to my Discord server as well as a link to my Twitch channel, which hopefully on Saturday we're going to be streaming the modern, I believe it's like a showcase type thing. We ended up actually doing very well in one of the modern challenges, actually made the top 8, gave us enough qualifier points to play in one of these showcase events, and I look forward to doing it. I've been playing a lot of the Is It Prowess deck, and I've been kind of fine-tuning the sideboard and the main deck and everything like that, so hopefully we have a pretty good solid build for that and for the future of the RCQ season, and of course getting ready for the regional championship. Go ahead and subscribe to the Casual Spikes Podcast YouTube channel, where we do a lot of the same stuff that we do there. Me and my co-host Randy over at MTG with Randy talk a lot about the competitive happenings of the modern standard format. We go deep dives into metagames, of course, what happened at the biggest competitive events and anything else Magic related as far as news. And lastly, I want to thank the sponsor of the channel, Manatraders. If you use my code in the description down below, you can sign up and get 5% off your monthly subscription. You're probably wondering, what the heck is Manatraders? Well, Manatraders is a rental service that you can use, to rent cards on Magic the Gathering Online, and you can play whatever cards you want in whatever format you want, whenever you want. They have a super fast and speedy rental service where as soon as you say that, hey, I want to rent these cards for a deck, maybe something like Is It Prowess or Boros Energy, whatever the case may be for the modern format, you can go ahead and copy paste a deck list. You can rent it, and within seconds you're going to have it in your account and ready to play in your next league, challenge, or showcase, whatever the case may be. I've enjoyed using it just because I am a content creator, obviously, and I get to play and try out various different decks. It also helps me out with play testing when I want to try out some different things. I don't have to necessarily buy all the cards that I need on Magic the Gathering Online. It can be a little pricey. This way you can just kind of pick and choose what you want to play, and of course figure out what you want to play in paper as well, which Manatraders has done a fantastic job of helping me determine. So yeah, go ahead, use my code in the description down below. You get 5% off your monthly subscription. With all that said, let's go ahead and check out these Edge of Eternity spoilers here. And we're going to start with the first 2 cards that we see here on our screen. The Serima, I hope that's right, and Sothera the Super Void, which absolutely looks it just looks stellar, and that's not even trying to make a joke or anything. They just look awesome. So the Serima is a 3-mana legendary aircraft spacecraft, or artifact spacecraft, excuse me, and they kind of work like vehicles, only they do have an inherent difference, obviously. So when this enters, you search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it, put it to your hand, then shuffle, okay? And it has Station, which works kind of like Crew. You tap another creature you control, and you put a charge counter equal to the power on this spacecraft. Station's only, you can only station as a sorcery, so, there's a little bit of a restriction there, and it's an artifact creature at 7+ charge counters on it. So when it gets 7 or more counters on it, it has flying, and other tapped legendary creatures you control have indestructible. So obviously this wants you to be a little bit more aggressive, and it kind of weird, honestly, in my opinion, just because you have to then tap your creatures to then, station it here. If it worked kind of like Crew, it'd be a little bit better, because then you could just kind of instant speed, like, blow out your opponent's removal spell just by saying, okay, I'll just station my legendary creature on my spacecraft, and then that's just such a weird thing to say. say even in 2025, just like I'm putting my legendary creature in my spacecraft. I think there's probably some legendary creatures that would absolutely freak out if they were in space. Let me know in the comments down below what character you think would have the hardest time dealing with space, short of me, because I would absolutely lose my shit. But this seems like a really cool card. Obviously, it's just a little taste of the spacecrafts. We'll have to get a little bit more to determine how good it is in relativity to the set. But nonetheless, I think it's really cool. I wish it was just a legendary permanent. That would be a little bit more versatile there. But I think for standard purposes, this is probably fine, and just a very good preview card to get a taste of what Edge of Eternities is going to be. Next, Sothura the Super Void, a 4-mana legendary enchantment that whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent chooses a creature they control and exiles it. So already this is going to be a pretty nice card for, those like sacrifice themed decks where you're like, okay, you're fine with sacrificing your creatures, your opponent's going to have to exile a creature that they control, and it's going to get around any indestructible, hexproof, shroud, any of that stuff. At the beginning of your end step, if a player controls no creatures, sacrifice Sothura and then put a creature exiled with it onto the battlefield under your control with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. So this is kind of cool, as even though you have to get rid of it and you can't necessarily just do it over and over again unless you have a way to replay the same one from your graveyard or just play another one, which is honestly I think really cool. Like, this is a pretty powerful ability. The fact that you're just going to have this sit on the battlefield, your opponent's going to have to figure out, like, okay, because a lot of the times you're going to be able to play this and probably get at least 1 or 2 creatures from your opponent depending on the matchup, and depending on if they want to be super aggressive, they have to decide if you're able to kill enough of your own creatures to then exile their creatures. Works very notably against the amount of red decks, with Heartfire Hero just being the one that is just going to blow up in your face. It gets exiled, no big deal, and of course your opponent is just going to be able to get your best creature that's already on the board in play under their control with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. Whether this actually sees play or not, I don't know. 4 mana right now in Standard even seems like it's a lot of mana to essentially do nothing, unless you're going to be able to kind of like force some blocks in combat where you're going to be able to soak up some damage with your creatures. Your creatures are going to die and then end up exiling them with the Super Void. With some of your opponent's creatures like the Super Void. So it's going to be interesting. I think this card could potentially be good depending on, the kind of builds that we could see here. There's a lot of powerful creatures currently in Standard, and just as long as you can exile things with the Sothura in play, it's going to end up being amazing. Plus the art on this, look at that. That full art treatment's really cool, and this, like, it's got a wall of text on it, but like that art is just absolutely amazing. And a little bit of like a white border action here too. I'm sure it's going to trigger some of the people, but it is what it is. Next, we have Harmonious Grove Strider and Tanic, the Memorial and Sign. These are 2 uncommons from the set. 5-mana Starstar, where this creature's power toughness are equal to the number of lands you control, so ideally it's like a 5-mana 5/5 with Ward 2, is pretty big. I mean, that's a massive creature. It's going to grow as you kind of play more lands, and of course Ward 2 is just very annoying. Any amount of Ward is just absolutely hard to deal with. And then Tanic is a 3-mana 2/4 that whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. And this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn. Draw a card. That's going to be pretty cool with like a lot of the fetch lands that we see in some of the older formats, and even in like Standard we have some fetch lands there. So if you want to be kind of like this Jund, like landfall-y, like damage deck, there are some good tools that are currently available in Standard that you can play with Tanic, and I think this is going to kind of be a pretty powerful card to kind of pair with, I think it's like Freak Strider Lookout, where you can commit crimes. This isn't going to commit a crime because it deals damage to each opponent, but nonetheless, that's like another way that you can, kind of play this on curve. Then you play like a fetch land, and you ding your opponent with some of your other things, and then you potentially get to play another land. You get to draw a card and just get some card advantage going. I think there might be something there. Just hopefully, I don't know if Scape Ship's actually printed in Foundations, but that would actually be pretty interesting, and you would have some like combo kills and stuff like that with some of the things going on here. Some commander cards will, whatever. Like, we don't typically follow Commander on this channel. Sammy, Ship's Engineer, is another uncommon from the set. A 4-mana 2/4 that at the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, create a tapped 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. This seems really cool just because it's like a card that you want to be pretty aggressive with. Like, you can follow this up post-combat. Obviously, being an uncommon, I'm sure that artifact creatures are going to be pretty important in this set, considering that we're referencing robots, and of course Tezzeret is also going to make his own robots. So, I mean, I think this is pretty cool. I think this is going to be a nice little payoff in the limited format. You maybe, I don't know if this is necessary to see constructed play. Again, 4 mana is a ton currently, even in standard, with all the crazy things. So on turn 4, people are playing VV and pump spells and then playing another 4 mana worth of spells. So there's a good chance that Sammy probably doesn't see any necessarily constructed play, but and maybe it would if we had like a massive rotation like we did rather than just a few sets. But nonetheless, I think this is a pretty interesting card. Next is the big bad. I'm assuming the big bad of the set here in Tezzeret Crow Captain, a 3 generic planeswalker that comes into play with 4 loyalty. That whenever an artifact you control enters, you put a loyalty counter on Tezzeret. 0, you untap target artifact or creature. If it's an artifact creature, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is a way that you can play some, cheap artifact creatures, and then they come into play. You're able to, kind of give them pseudo vigilance and be able to pump them up a little bit. Also, the fact that you get to untap artifacts. I mean, with the minus ability here, where you can go get an artifact with mana value 1 or less. In our short, we talked about getting like Mox Opal and some powerful, sideboard bullets like in Soul Guide Lantern that we see kind of popping up in Modern. And of course, that card is also legal in Standard, so that's like another way that you can kind of get some graveyard hate going. You can also get like double X spells, which isn't really relevant necessarily to Standard, but into Modern, where we see like Chalice of the Void and Walking Ballista. Those are cards that you can get with Tezzeret that you can't necessarily get with something like Urza Saga, which I think is really neat. But there's a lot of powerful synergies with the 0 and the -3, and of course the -7, you get an emblem with the beginning combat on your turn. You put 3+1/+1 counters on a target artifact you control. If it's not a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot artifact creature. So this is a way that, like with those artifacts that you kind of gathered from searching for Tezzeret or just kind of like playing them out and whatever the case may be, maybe these do nothing, like not necessarily artifact creatures, then you're able to obviously get a little bit of a payoff because you're going to start turning them into creatures. 3/3s are pretty big. They will close out a game relatively quickly. And it doesn't have to be a non-creature artifact. It can just be any artifact. So like the thing I'm thinking of with like the affinity decks in Modern, where you don't necessarily need like Kappa Cannoneer, or maybe you just want to play more of like a value-y type build. You can then end up playing, like the Thought Monitors and Ornithopters and things like that. And you're able to just slap counters on them and get in an attack. And really, you just kind of got so much value for like a 0 mana card with Tezzeret in play, and of course just getting to put counters on it already. So it's just some interesting builds. Like those are some things that kind of pop into my mind very quickly. Of course, there's like other decks that want to get some 0 and 1 mana spells, artifact spells from their deck. So in general, I'm pretty happy with Tezzeret. I think this is going to be a relatively powerful planeswalker in the Eternal formats. I mean, this has all the makings to be a potential all-star in those formats. There's a ton of, in Legacy Vintage, we see a lot of like soul lands, like lands that end up tapping for 2 mana, and especially in some of the best artifact decks, like in Workshops, like they have a lot of good, 0 and 1 mana artifacts that they can go get, especially in Vintage. So nonetheless, like Tezzeret just kind of helps you find some of those powerful cards in like those formats, and of course is better the farther back that you go, which is a crazy thing to say. But yeah, Tezzeret is a pretty powerful planeswalker that I'm sure is going to see plenty of testing, at least in the early parts of Edge of Eternities. And of course, it's got a really cool full art treatment here, which is like really cool. I do like the dark aesthetic here, but then like of course, like aside from him, everything else is like really light. I think I'd rather it kind of follow this kind of aesthetic, but this still looks really cool, and people are definitely going to notice it when you play it. We got a look at some of the full art lands. I think most of these are just kind of like repeats of the art, so a little unfortunate there. But I mean, these are just really cool, and I can't wait to see like what these look like in foil. We got the plains, island, swamp, mountain, and of course forest. And probably one of the biggest announcements from the weekend, of course, aside from like Tezzeret obviously being the big bad, and of course Edge of Eternities spoilers, we have half of the Shockland cycle coming to the Magic the Gathering, coming to Standard, and these look like to be and I think these are like enemy colored Shocklands. Someone's going to tell me that I'm wrong, and that is totally fine, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that these are like enemy colored Shocklands, and these are going to be pretty sweet. I'm sure that these are going to get some kind of like future full art kind of treatment here, and this is just really good because we want these for Pioneer, because hopefully Pioneer is going to end up coming back in paper in some form or fashion. A lot of older players already have a lot of these cards, so these are just kind of easy plug and play, and these are probably some of the best like modern dual lands of all time. I mean, obviously like the best dual lands of all time are going to be the original dual lands that, you know, they just come to play on tap and they give you 2 free colors no matter what. You can argue that like surveil lands are really good in formats like fetch lands or whatever, but I think like in a vacuum, like these are probably some of the best lands that you can play. Just, you know, for a little bit of life, they're going to come into play untapped. They have the basic land types, so they care about all the basic land type stuff that you can do in Magic when it comes to like fetching things that care about like the, you know, the name types and everything like that. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. And then finally here we have this sweet, I'm assuming this is like Edge of Eternities, like special, not like special guest, but like special kind of cards here. And this is Mutavault, and I tell you what, this art is absolutely amazing. I kind of like some of the like text box work that they did here. Of course, like putting Mutavault here and then having like land in the actual text box with like the tap symbol and the activated ability, to me is kind of weird. I don't know if I necessarily like that. Even like doing it here, I just kind of like having the name somewhere up here. Like if they would have did this and they would have just like stapled it across the top and then kept everything else like in this box, I think it would have been a little bit better with it. But when I see this, I just think of like the land, like land and then like land type or whatever, or creature or whatever in this box. So I don't know how I'm going to necessarily like these style of cards. I'm going to have to see what these cards would look like if you had a creature or some other spell that had this kind of like treatment to it. I would kind of have to see, but I think if it ended up kind of like this, I don't know if I'd necessarily like it, but that's me personally. But yeah, that is all the spoilers that we've gotten so far from Edge of Eternities. I am a pretty big fan of this set. I think that this is going to be, while I am not, I wouldn't particularly call myself a space enjoyer, necessarily. I do kind of like the ideas of like space horror and things like that, and just kind of exploring these kind of like concepts that don't really get explored too much. I mean, if you're a big fan of like video games and stuff, there's like Dead Space is like a really good one, and probably like the normie answer for a lot of people. And I think there's like so many, there's like a few games that like kind of give me like space vibes or whatever, but I think this is going to be really cool. So far I'm pretty impressed with like, you know, I'm excited to see a lot of these cards. While I don't think that all of them necessarily have like a defined home, or, you know, they necessarily create any different archetypes or things like that are very powerful that could potentially take over standard, because I think we're going to be pretty dominated by Izzet and mono red for quite a while, since a lot doesn't really rotate for them. I do think that this is a pretty cool set. I think that there's going to be a lot of, you know, sweet treatments, and while I think that Final Fantasy was a really good set, and I like kind of all the art and some of the alternates and things like that they did for it, I'm happy to come back to another in-universe Magic the Gathering set, and I think this looks absolutely amazing. And I don't know how many times I can say it, I'm pretty excited for what this set holds, and getting more spoilers and kind of getting closer, because usually like with this set release too, like I said, is also going to mark the rotation of standard and the Spotlight Series event that's going to be going on in Orlando, Florida, or at least in Florida. I don't know if it's necessarily Orlando, but it's going to be really cool, and that all that just has me excited to kind of check out and see if Standard will actually change with rotation, or if it'll kind of be the same, and what cards will make an impact on those formats and beyond. But that's going to do it for me in this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video. Comment down below what you're excited for from Edge of Eternities, or maybe what you want to see. Anything at all to do with the set. I do want to hear your comments down below, and I greatly appreciate it. And of course, get some interaction and things like that. It does help out the channel. Subscribe, all that fun stuff. Check out the description for even more content if that's what you so choose to do. But that's going to do it for me in this video. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one.